Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 238 of the All Dolphins podcast on this Wednesday, March 6th, 2024. We start off by wishing a happy birthday, number 41, to Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel. Happy birthday, Mike.
I didn't even know he was 40 last year. He seems so much younger.
Everybody looks young to me these days. So I kid.
That's what happens when you get old.
That is true. So this is the run of birthdays. March 1st is Tyreek Hill. March 2nd is Tua. March 4th was Javon Holland. March 6th is Mike McDaniel. I don't know who else is next in March for the Dolphins.
Whose birthday will it be tomorrow?
That's a good point. We'll have to redo the research. We'll find out and we'll tell you tomorrow.
Actually, I think the birthdays are on here. Go ahead.
Here. Okay, as Omar looks for the next Dolphin birthday, let us tell you today we're going to be talking about the tight end position / Janu Smith's visit, what Drew Rosenhaus had to say during his interview with Joe Rose on Wednesday morning. Jordan Poyer, an interesting name in an ever-growing list of big-name safeties that are available on the market.
Man, that safety list is getting crowded.
For teams that might need a safety like, I don't know.
Miami Dolphins, yeah.
Yeah. We start, as always, however, with our history lesson. Today is going to be 38 because it's episode 238. The Dolphins have picked a player 38th overall twice, one of whom was, speaking of tight ends, Andre Tillman back in the 70s, and most recently, a current member of the Dolphins.
Oh, yeah, he still is.
But only officially, that's Xavier Howard in 2016. Dolphins moved up, for those who don't remember, in that round to get Xavier Howard. Yep, they moved up in the second round. I don't recall. Oh, yes, they did. I don't recall exactly how far they moved up, but I'm sorry, they moved up. I don't recall exactly how far they moved up, but they moved up. Obviously, had a conviction on Xavier Howard, and that's clearly a pick that they hit on.
And it would be the best draft pick in the Chris Greer era of draft picks. Yes. Don't debate it with me. I know that's correct. I've looked it up.
I was going to say one could make the argument Laremy Tunsil based on what he has produced in terms of draft capital after that trade.
Come on. And
here's the other thing. Hold on. Who's had the better NFL career, Xavier Howard or Laremy Tunsil? Actually, that's very, very close. Very,
very close. I'd have to look at how many Pro Bowls Laremy Tunsil has got, but but he didn't play for the team. He just delivered draft picks. He played for the team for a couple of years.
He was approaching. He had arrived at Pro Bowl level, even though he didn't get that recognition with the Dolphins. By the way, and if we're going to use Pro Bowls as a gauge, can we recognize that X's last Pro Bowl was not earned? Really? I mean, come on. He himself was like, was like that.
Okay. Laremy Tunsil made it to 4 Pro Bowls. And if we're gonna knock X for when he made it when he didn't deserve to, we need to give him credit for when he deserved to and didn't make it.
We could say the same about Tunsil, because Tunsil's last year in Miami should have been.
We're splitting hairs. One played for the Dolphins, one didn't play for the Dolphins.
Yeah, it's because they traded him. So, and anyway, we can argue that, let's just say arguably the best draft pick of the Chris Greer era would have been Xavier Howard. And in terms of 238 on the nose, the Dolphins have done that twice. Abraham Wright, a defenseman from Colorado in 2007. And then just last year, the Dolphins made the 238th overall pick. That was tackle Ryan Hayes from Michigan, who was cut, signed to the Colts practice squad.
No, claimed. I think he got claimed by the Colts and put on the 53 and then was on the practice squad. And then he came back to the Miami Dolphins practice squad.
I believe you are correct. And they came back. And then they resigned him.
I can be correct too, you know.
There you go. There you go, Omar. This is for you.
All right. Appreciate that.
There we go. Good job. Okay, so that takes care of our – and Hayes was signed to a futures contract. He's going to have a shot to make the roster. I got this question one time in a Twitter mailbag of what the hopes, expectations are for the dude. Again, I think best case scenario right now, if we're going to be honest, is he makes a 53-man roster. I don't think we're looking at a potential starter anytime soon.
You never know. We didn't expect Kendall Lamb to be a potential starter, and he was. So who knows?
Kendall Lamb also had 9 years of NFL experience when he came to the Dolphins. He wasn't a 7th-round pick who got cut.
Keon Smith. We never know what he can be either. We shall see.
Correct. I am just saying to temper expectations is what I'm doing. I'm playing being realistic, or
Gotcha.
as some would say in the comments, probably we're going to suggest I'm a Debbie Downer negative and all that. So,
that makes two of us. I'm always accused of being a Debbie Downer.
There, both of us.
Yes.
Okay, so that
the Debbie Downer podcast.
That's a good point. We should wah, wah, and then go like this, like they do the camera close up. Great skit, by the way. If you've never seen it,
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Are you serious? Oh my God, Debbie Downer. When we're done, Google Debbie Downer Saturday Night Live Disney World, and then watch it. Come back to me, and if you tell me you didn't crack up 4 or 5 times, then something's wrong with you.
What is this? Debbie Downer Saturday Night
Live Disney World.
Okay.
It is hilarious.
All right. Debbie Downer.
It's probably, that skit's probably a top 5 one for me on Saturday Night Live, even though to me, maybe the best one was the Peyton Manning United Way spoof, which is completely hilarious when they say the parents spend time with their children, so Peyton Manning doesn't have to. That tagline right there tells you all you need to know. Okay.
I like Justin Timberlake's D in a Box.
It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad.
Yeah.
Wouldn't make my top 5 of SNL skits, but it wasn't bad. Okay, so let's address Dolphins today. We could start with Jordan Poyer. We could start with Janu Smith. We could start with what Drew Rosenhaus had to say about Jerome Baker.
Let's start with Jordan Poyer because this is pressing, and Jamal Adams, Quandre Diggs, Jenkins from the safety from the University of Miami safety with Jacksonville. There's going to be a crowded list of safeties. Teams are just beginning their roster purges now. This is really the week of purge. And when you think about it and look at teams like the Buffalo Bills, which have $32 million in cap space that they need to clear, they're the only team in a worse cap situation than the Miami Dolphins right now. They got some tough decisions to make. They're probably going to have to restructure Josh Allen's deal. Probably going to have to address Stephon Diggs, who might be trying to force his way out of Buffalo. We'll see what happens with that. But they've got some roster trimming and some tough decisions to make on players. And Jordan Poyer is one of those guys who gets cut. He lives down here in South Florida. I see him at training at Bomberitos all the time. I know he's wanted to play for the Miami Dolphins and has actually said that in a past podcast. The only problem is he's 33 years old. And I don't necessarily know if we're going for the old age stopgaps. But then again, this is such a buyer's market when it comes to safeties. I think you're going to be able to enhance that unit very easily if you can evaluate talent.
And I reached out to somebody who covers the Bills to get the scoop on what kind of player Jordan Poyer is at this stage. And I was told not quite this player he once was. So the name value is certainly up there. And other names who are Kevin Byard, for a long time Tennessee Titan of the Eagles last year, also got released. He's available. Eddie Jackson from the Bears, available. They both are younger. They're 31. So the Dolphins want to go.
They've got Geno Stone from the Ravens, who's basically at 25 years old. And he's got history with Anthony Weaver. Not that Anthony Weaver was coaching the secondary. You can go a ton of ways on this safety position. I have no idea what they're going to do, and hell, you can go address it in the draft. So there's a ton of options there, and I think it's going to really bring down the price for everybody, and that includes Brandon Jones, that includes Deshaun Elliott. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out.
Correct. And by all indications, it's not a very good year for safeties in the draft. And the Dolphins can get a very established veteran at safety to join Javon Holland for a much better price than maybe in other off seasons, again, because the market is so flooded, I should say.
You know what's interesting? I thought Deshaun Elliott played for $1.8 million. So I think that's a very conservative deal. If I'm the Miami Dolphins, I'm looking to sign a safety for probably 2.5 to less. So it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out.
No, it will. And again, it should be mentioned that Jordan Poyer has said before he wants to play for the Dolphins. He's certainly somebody I would keep an eye on. Again, he's not the player he once was. And if he were, Bills wouldn't have let him go, even though they're going to say 5.5 or 5.6. I think.
Yeah, you never know. Sometimes it's the business and the politics. Look at Janu Smith. Just to shift the conversation, the tight end for the Atlanta Falcons.
Before you go there, if he was still prime Jordan Poyer, they wouldn't have let him go. I said what I said. Go ahead, Janu Smith.
Okay, just because people see next, we're gonna have to put you down because you're old too. Because that's what happens with every NFL player. They get in their upper 30s, and then they're lost a step. They're not the same. They can't play. That's just the nature of the league. That doesn't necessarily mean that a player is not good anymore.
It means he's not as good as he once was. That's what it means. And if he was still prime Jordan Poyer, they would not have released him. Do I have to do it again? I said what I said.
Okay. Let's get with Janu Smith, who is a former FIU standout, 7-year veteran in the league. He started, I can't remember the exact number, it's 70-something games in his career, which was a total surprise for me, during his tenure with the Titans, the New England Patriots, and then one season with the Atlanta Falcons. He visited Miami Dolphins on Tuesday and is supposedly negotiating contract, according to his agent, who told Drew Rosenhaus, who told the Joe Rose Show that other teams are interested. And I would have to wonder why other teams wouldn't be interested, because when you look at Janu Smith's statistics last year, oh my God. And his catch radius, his yards after contact, I believe statistically, according to Pro Football Focus, he led the NFL in yards after catch.
Among tight ends.
Caught 50 of 70 passes last season for 483 yards and 3 touchdowns. I've seen him train at Bomberitos. He's got size, he's got power, he's got speed. I believe he ran a 4.68 at the NFL Combine, and hasn't probably lost much of a step. I think that's a real good signing for the Miami Dolphins if they can manage to make it happen. Now, price point I'd put on it, somewhere in the $5 million a year range. I don't see that as a priority position for the Miami Dolphins. And if you pay him more than you're going to pay Durham Smythe, that kind of creates salary complications or payroll complications, especially if Durham Smythe is going to be the starter.
Okay. Again, I'm going to say the same thing I said about Jordan Poyer. If he was all that in a bag of chips, he wouldn't have gotten cut. Janu Smith is a receiving tight end. He will never be confused with George Kittle as a blocker, or even Durham Smythe as a blocker. He's a receiving
tight end. He can't block. He's not Mike Gesicki.
He is, and again, I'm going to use this again strictly because it backs up my argument. His run blocking grade per Pro Football Focus was in the Mike Gesicki range. And I've seen it, and forget again, my eye sucking. I've seen the dude play. He's a borderline H-back tight end. That's what he was in Tennessee, but he was very good at it. And then he was part of that shopping spree the Patriots did in 2021 when they had all this cap space. They doubled down on tight ends. They got Hunter Henry and Janu Smith. I don't know if they were trying to recreate what they had with Gronk and Aaron Hernandez back in the day. It didn't work out. Smith was an absolute non-factor in New England. They shipped him to Atlanta. Put up a very good number with what was a very poor quarterback situation. No offense to
the number 2 tight end too, because Kyle Pitts was the number 1 tight end.
Correct. And when they threw an awful lot to the back, so Bijan Robinson also had good receiving numbers. I mean, they threw a whole bunch short because they didn't have a downfield passing game. Anyway, so no, it would be a good acquisition, and this goes along with somebody put out this clip on Twitter. Latest, I believe it was a Dallas game that was called by Fox, and Greg Olson, former great tight end, said he had a conversation with Mike McDaniel
from the 7th Floor Crew.
There you go. Had a conversation with Mike McDaniel, who told him that the next evolution in the offense was to get the tight end more involved in the passing game. Well, this is where Janu Smith would come in. So at the right price, to me, yes, it's an absolutely would be a very good acquisition. Whether it pans out, obviously we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, and the market is kind of been set by Dalton Schultz, who signed a 3-year deal today, which was with the Houston Texans for crazy money, 3 years, $36 million. Don't know necessarily what the guaranteed money is, but here's my question to you. If you're the Miami Dolphins, do you wait for the market to open up? I mean, you're already negotiating with tight ends, probably, if that's something that you want to do. Do you wait for the market and go after a guy like Harrison Bryant from the Browns, or Nate Fant from Seahawks, or Hunter Henry from the Patriots? Or do you actually just take advantage of the guy who can actually sign now, as opposed to having to wait? Or do you address it in the draft? And I want to bring this up because, if you do want to get Mike Gesicki back, you could always do that since he's a free
agent because he only signed a 1-year deal with the Patriots. I'm going to guess
1 year for $6 million, by the way.
Yeah, I'm going to guess that's not going to happen. Just a wild guess. Here's the thing also, and maybe the Dolphins are going to have an eye on this. Looking ahead, like Janu Smith would be better than one of the UFAs because it could come into play into the compensatory picks for 2025.
That is true.
I looked at the CBA again today just to get clarification. I mean, it's like
complicated.
The formula includes basically salary signed with the new team, playtime, postseason accolades, and then they basically rank the players. And then you have to be in the top 15 at your position or in the league, and that gives you a 3rd-round pick. And then you nullify those when you sign compensatory free agents. They're called. Janu Smith does not qualify as that because he was released by Atlanta. So you sign him, he doesn't factor in the computation.
So we're going to spend all this offseason letting our own free agents go, and then signing players that are released from other teams just so that we can get compensatory picks. Yay!
No. But if you're going to choose between 2 tight ends you feel the same about, you'd rather sign the guy who's a quote-unquote street free agent as opposed to the UFA who could cost you a comp pick next year.
All of this for that 3rd-round pick that Christian Wilkins might get us one day. All right, for letting our best player on defense go. Yay!
No, that's a different conversation altogether. But here's the other thing, too, is that you have – the other thing you can do also is there are a lot of similar pass-catching tight ends. Gerald Everett's another guy, played for the Chargers last year, is a good receiving tight end, not necessarily a blocker. Could it be that you court 2 or 3 of those receiving tight ends, and then you extend the same offer to all of them, and whoever grabs it, that's who signs?
Yeah, that's a very good point. I think they did that with the offensive linemen last offseason, and they, after the draft, and who signed is who signed. I just didn't see, and it's funny that Janu Smith was the first free agent that really visited. I know one guy signed, the defensive tackle.
Isaiah Mack. Come on, know the name. He's a veteran. He's not a rookie free agent, so you need to know the name.
Sure.
Mack.
Sure. But I remember early in the offseason, and Nick Hicks, who happens to be a local trainer down here, not just for Tua. He trains a lot of combine talent, a lot of NFL veterans. He basically said, since he's a Tua whisperer, that Tua needs a seam threat tight end. He needs a pass catching specialist. And I was just like, I don't really buy that. He posted it. And I said, I don't really buy that just because of their utilization and the fact that we know they don't throw to the tight ends in practice. Not even in practice, they don't throw to the tight ends, and they're just primarily blockers. But if you added one of those weapons who can actually block, maybe you can include it. Maybe it can become a factor. So I guess, Mike McDaniels is always about building an offense around his team's skill set. So but then again, why did Mike Gesicki work?
It's kind of a downfield tight end threat. And here's the thing, though, is they've done the downfield, down the seam play. In fact, I would make the point that that's been easily the most successful passing play the Dolphins have had in the past 2 years is that 15 to 20 yards on the middle of the field, down the seam. I mean, the Dolphins have made a living off of that the last 2 years. Is it really going to make a huge difference if you get a tight end to run it as opposed to having Waddle and Tyreek run it all the time? It certainly can't. It can't help to add another receiving option. That is for sure. So as you mentioned, Drew said that there's interest from other teams. Drew also spoke about Jerome Baker's release, and the first thing that jumped out at me, he said that if it wasn't for the injuries that Jerome Baker suffered down the stretch against Washington, I know you're giving me that look like you don't believe it, but that's what the man said. Against Washington and dislocated wrist against Buffalo, he said we would not have had those discussions.
Right.
And by the way, this is where I point out that Dolphins did release Jerome Baker with a failed physical designation.
Okay. Here's my thing, and I hear where everybody's coming from regarding the topic, but I will say this. When I first discovered the cap crisis that is upon us right now, last year, and then started to do some arithmetic to try to figure out a way out of it, Jerome Baker was an easy identifying.
Always.
Jerome Baker was always there, and even Jerome knew that this was coming. Mm-hmm. So, players, they privately talk, and they knew it was coming. Everybody who got cut knew it was coming. So even some of the players who still haven't been cut, they know it's coming. So, I don't necessarily buy that. However, I think it's great to say, especially for teams that are interested in bidding. And realistically, I don't see any reason why Jerome Baker wouldn't be able to go out there and get a 2-year, $12 million deal from another team. I mean, 2-year, $12 million, six a season. When I look at the list of free agent inside linebackers out there, like Jerome Baker produced sacks, produced interceptions, produced 100 tackle seasons. He's no slouch. So I definitely think that in a competitive world where he's healthy and he's given every opportunity to compete for a playing role, I think he's going to do well. And I think he's healthy enough to make it happen. So I'm curious to see where he lands. And right now, considering he just got released, he can sign with anybody in the world.
At any time. And he's another one of those who's not a compensatory free agent because
and it's been mentioned that he could possibly land and end up in Cleveland. And it should be pointed out that their two inside linebackers, Anthony Walker and Sione Takatiki.
You're gonna hurt yourself. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sione Takatiki. They're both free agents. So it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out in the coming days. But Tampa's also got their two inside linebackers as free agent. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious to see what the caliber of inside linebackers are. And I believe we did ask that when we did a draft special, primarily trying to forecast what happens with Jerome. What does the talent look like at inside linebacker in this draft? And we were told it wasn't very good.
No. And by the way, this is where we point out that Jerome Baker's from Ohio. So, and I believe the Cleveland area. So that would be a homecoming for him.
And then your boy Brian Flores, Jordan Hicks, his starting inside linebacker is a free agent. And you know what? You said yesterday that Brian Flores liked Jerome Baker, and I sort of disagreed with you. And I'd like to apologize to you because I do remember now, or in the very early stages, remember when Jerome Baker, who was a weak side linebacker, was just handed the starting inside linebacker spot, and Raekwon Davis was just like, not Raekwon Davis, Raekwon McMillan was just like, discarded to the side when Brian Flores got here the very first season?
2019.
They switched roles, and then when Flores had that 7-game losing streak and needed to shake things up, he moved Jerome from inside linebacker to outside linebacker, and he was productive and helped them turn around that defense. So I'm not saying that Brian Flores has a lot of say and influence there in Minnesota, but you could definitely see where he would fit in with the Vikings.
I would think if he tells a GM, especially when they have a need at linebacker, listen, that guy can really help us, I think they certainly would pay attention to what he has to say. Of course, Drew mentioned the possibility, as he did with Christian Wilkins, that sure they could always come back to the Dolphins. And
yeah,
is it possible? Sure, it's always possible. I don't know that I'd hold my breath in either case. I think of the two, I think I might be more inclined to think that there's a better possibility that Wilkins comes back than Baker.
Oh, Wilkins? Not even X? No, I'm just joking. Yeah, and I actually have a column going up on alldolphins.com, which piggybacks on Alan Poupard's theory and discussions about when you proposed it maybe up a month ago or two. Hey, franchise tagging Christian Wilkins might not be a wise idea just because of the cap that it would absolutely eat up. And you can basically sign 3 players with that cap space, and that includes Christian. And truthfully speaking, when you do the math and the arithmetic, and I have done it, Christian, let's say the Dolphins say, we're going to give you Quentin Williams' exact deal. Well, that exact deal eats up $6.5 million in cap space in year 1. So it's like sign Christian to a $105 million contract that eats up $6.5 million in cap space, or place the franchise tag on him to prevent other teams from bidding on him for $22.1 million, or use a transition tag for 18.5 that allows you to match it. It just doesn't make good business sense to put the franchise tag on him, especially if you're going to be competitive in the bidding. So yeah, I wouldn't rule out Christian returning, but I think it's a strong possibility that he's gone, especially since I've heard him say to his teammates that he's gone.
Well, because I think based on the conversations that they've had, and again, they've talked quite a bit, Wilkins' agent and the Dolphins, and they've thrown numbers back and forth at each other, and I think Christian has an idea of how far the Dolphins are willing to go, and I'm going to guess he's pretty confident he can get more on the open market, and it very well may be that he will. In fact, a couple of things I want to mention. I have a story on the possible destinations for Wilkins on alldolphins.com. My headline, by the way, when I wrote about Wilkins shortly after the end of the season, was something along the lines of like, his friend is tagging Wilkins a slam dunk. Clearly it wasn't.
Look at you popping your collar.
Sorry?
I said, look at you popping your collar. You're supposed to go like this. No, it's not. You're not supposed to shake your collar. You're supposed to pop it.
I don't have a lot of experience doing that. I'll just do this. How's this?
Oh, pat yourself on the back? Okay. All right.
We also have, or I could go throw myself some hearts. We also have a story on alldolphins.com from our teammate, all-around good guy, Dante Colinelli, who looked at potential replacements for Jerome Baker in case he does wind up walking, both veteran free agents and draft options, which would not be in the first round. Dolphins are not taking them an inside an off the ball linebacker in the first round. That's still to me going to be an interior offensive lineman or a defensive tackle. Now would be the logical spots.
Safety.
Not in the first round. Not in the first round.
Maybe possible.
When we have Tony Pauline on,
or a cornerback.
I have a hard time going cornerback after they went Cam Smith last year. Drew also talked about Braxton Berrios, made an interesting point in terms of his value possibly upping next year if they do change the kickoff rules, because lo and behold, there actually might be kickoff returns in the NFL next year. So the rule they're suggesting is you're going to kick off from the opponent 40-yard line. The receiving team is going to be between the 30 and 35 with, I think it's 1 or 2 receivers like at the 5-yard line. Nobody can move other than the kicker and the receiver until the ball is caught. If you kick it off and you don't reach the 20-yard line, then I believe you get the ball at the 40, just like it would kick out of bounds. If you just drill it through the end zone for a touchback, the receiving team would get the ball at the 35. So the idea is to encourage more kickoff returns.
Why would they want to do that?
because their whole thing is if you don't have running starts, if you don't have guys running full speed going like this, you're eliminating the collisions they want to eliminate by forcing teams.
But then creating the sexy play of losing the kickoff.
Correct. And then,
I mean, but ultimately there are going to be collisions.
Yeah, but they're not at full speed if everybody's at a standstill, or you don't have time to build up as much speed if you're from the opponent 40 and you're going down like maybe 20 yards before that collision. So, and then if for onside kicks, you would have to declare you doing an onside kick. There wouldn't be the same kind of limitations in terms of how many players on each side. And by the way, this is all going to be voted at the owners' meetings at the end of the month in March. I personally prefer. Sorry?
I said I vote that it fails.
It's better than what it was last year with touchback after touchback. I mean,
I don't disagree with you, but I just generally vote that everything fails the first time around.
Okay, and the one I like, the onside, the replacement for the onside kick rule that I love actually is one time you have to be down in the fourth quarter. It's 4th and 15 from your 25, I think it is, and that's your onside kick. You get the first down, you keep the ball, you don't, the other team takes over. As opposed to an onside kick the way it is now, where I think it was 97.5%. It's the receiving team that recovers, and it's basically the game's over. So anyway, I think that's about all we got, right?
Yeah. Let's tell them about the rest of the week.
Oh yeah, excited about tomorrow. We have. It's not when Dolphin podcasts unite or collide, whatever you want to say. I kind of prefer like about Dolphin Writer Roundtable. We are going to be joined tomorrow. We're going to be joined tomorrow on Thursday by longtime South Florida Sun Sentinel columnist Dave Hyde and Joe Shad, beat writer for the Palm Beach Post. And I'm hoping and thinking it's going to be the same kind of episode we had when we had Beasley and Perkins on. Looking forward to that. And then on Friday, we're going to have the aforementioned Tony Pauline to talk prospects in 2024 draft.
Draft expert Tony Pauline, one of my favorite draft guys. So we've got the week planned out for you. You know how we do. You know how we operate. All right here on alldolphins.com. Everything is free. No paywall. No subscriptions. Alldolphins.com. That's all you got to type in your browser, and you can find everything. And you know how to find us on the audio platforms and primarily on YouTube, which is hopefully where you're watching it right now. On that note, we will see you tomorrow.
Thanks, everyone.
Visit alldolphins.com for the latest news, analysis, and columns, and it's all free. You can find Omar Kelly and Alan Poupard on the All Dolphins podcast discussing South Florida's NFL team on YouTube and anywhere you find your audio podcasts. Make sure you subscribe, like, and share so you stay in the know.